5 questions to ask yourself. This video is going to be more of a theory slash brainstorming video. Questions that you might want to ask yourself when you are creating something in Notion. As you can see on the screen, I've linked a video around information architecture, a video that I was inspired by very recently. And I feel like this acronym that this video introduces, LATCH, can be immensely helpful when thinking about how to design, create, organize in Notion. I will link the YouTube video in the description of this video, but I sort of want to go over very quickly what the LATCH acronym stands for. Each letter in that word is referring to a way in which information can be seen as architecture. L for location, A for alphabet, T for time, C for category, and 5 for hierarchy. As you can imagine, almost everything we see organized takes form in the combination of a few of these things. And when I first saw this video that was recommended to me, I was immediately able to pinpoint what levels of information architecture might be helpful to think about creating your Notion masterpiece, a template, consulting, etc. Some questions that I thought about that I thought would be sort of an inspiration to this information architecture video, and questions that can sort of help you better understand how you might want to build something, create something, organize something. I've come up with 5 questions to ask yourself before you get started. So as you can see on the screen, I have the 5 questions, and I'll just go into detail sort of what I think each question digs into. The first question is, what categories of information do you need to organize? And I think the keywords here are information and organization, because the whole reason for this video is because context matters. Everyone is using Notion for a different aspect of their life or their day-to-day or their professional careers. And so I constructed a set of 5 very accessible questions that you might be able to ask yourself to sort of shape and form where you might want to get started. I think by introducing the words information and organize, it starts to add that basic context in which we're having to define what information is and what organization is and how that might shape these other questions. And as you can imagine, they sort of are related to this LATCH acronym. You can probably piece it together. And I highly recommend watching this short video that I linked, because I think it's immensely valuable and I think it might help you shape and understand the way you might structure your stuff. So the second question is, what levels of hierarchy do you need for your information? Obviously, the keywords here are levels and hierarchy. And I think the reason why this question is so valuable is because it starts to think about the layering and the basic relations between the sources of information that we might need to be aware of. And although this is all within the context of Notion, I do think there are moments and ways for people to take these questions and to transform them into relevant context that goes beyond Notion. How should databases be used? I think that's a question that we all jump to immediately. Oh, probably just need a database. Oh, it sounds like we need a place to store, organize, layer said information in one place. But I think the reason why this question is number 3 is because the answers to the first 2 questions start to add that layer of context in which we can start to shape it within a database. And I think the 4th question sort of ties everything together and sort of functions as the glue, because time and associations, as well as notifications, and then also in terms of responsibility standpoint, how does that start to influence your database, right? So what do dates, notifications, and assignment mean to you within this entire context? And I think most people understand databases as a place to store information, but I think the key to utilizing certain properties within these databases is knowing how to interact these properties and account for these factors within the greater context of everything else. I think the final question that I'd start to think about is, how do you want to account for repetitive things? And the reason why I think this question is important is because in some ways people overcomplicate or overcreate things. I have, definitely, in my sort of short creation journey, but I think it's really, really important to account for that duplicity, account for, if this is happening every so often, then how do we want to normalize that repetition? Some things that come to mind for me are database templates, recurring database entries, creating automations for repetitive processes, and even using buttons to minimize the number of clicks you might need to take to start a process. If you put all these 5 questions together, I think whether you're creating for yourself, whether you're consulting, I think this is a really great way to understand what you're actually building and how you might want to interact with properties within Notion, and all while sort of thinking about the bigger picture and how we want to organize things based on sort of this LATCH acronym perspective. What's really important to note here is nothing is just a singular version of the LATCH acronym. And I think with Notion, it's a blend and a product mix, all 5 of these organizational factors within information architecture that makes this important, valuable, and maybe relevant to think about before you start anything. Oftentimes we just jump into it and we start building. And I think by answering these questions first, you might think twice about, do I really need that database? Does that hierarchy actually make sense? And is this information being categorized and organized appropriately? And how can we make that access of information easier through different properties? And with the repetitive menial tasks, how can we make that easier for ourselves? So I think these questions are things that I would ask myself when I'm thinking about the workflow within Notion and how you might want to represent something, how you might want to accomplish something, or what you want to create so that you can make someone's life easier. This is a very different video from all the rest that I've created, but I do hope that you take the opportunity to watch this short video, which I'll link in the description, about information architecture. And I hope that asking some of these questions before you get started or before you start creating can help you in your journey within Notion and beyond. And I think, again, some of these questions almost go beyond Notion because in some ways, everybody or every organization or every person has information and a level of organization that they seek. Hopefully this was helpful. Please like and subscribe. And thanks for always supporting my channel. Really, really enjoying this journey so far. And I am amazed at how far I've come in just a few months. Thanks for watching.